Hello, it's November 2023, and this video is inspired by, I guess, a video that had gone viral or something with this woman who thinks she's a man and went through all the surgeries and hormones and everything else. And when you actually look at this individual, you would assume that they were a man, facial hair and everything. But what really got my attention with this particular video is a realization by this individual. And they were very emotional, crying and everything else in this video, explaining now they get to see life somewhat through the lens of a man. Now we have to keep in mind that this individual is still biologically a woman, hasn't lived their whole life pretending to be a man. So they still think like a woman, like a female. But they're really trying to fit that role. And then through that perspective, they're starting to realize that being a man, a male, especially in today's world, is extremely difficult. And they go on to talk about how, for example, men are not as emotionally supportive. I'm just really trying to paraphrase everything. And I'm just going to interject here. Men can be, to a certain degree, but much different than, say, women are. That's why men tend to gravitate towards women, aside from procreation, because of the affection. It's a different type of affection. Men will give affection, comparing it to a woman, in a more harder way. But it doesn't mean that there's no care there. But men do, or are, more competitive, and that all has to do with procreation, that whole competitiveness and etc. But anyway, going back to this individual, so they explain from their perspective now how hard it is, and that really had me thinking. Now, for myself, throughout my whole life, I've never had a problem making male friends, and never even had an issue with female friends or more. In fact, I know a lot of men, most men, usually the beta and omega types, they may be shy, they have issues meeting someone. I can't relate to those experiences. But when it comes to social support, say from society, it doesn't exist. And this is where when I was watching this individual talk, it brought me back all the way to around 2013. Now, after the events, well, actually that started December 2012 with a false accusation. Setting aside who was behind it or anything else, that false accusation really devastated me when I was told about it by the female. And there's videos and everything else supporting that it was false, even by the female's own testimony to police and everything else. But the point is, as a male, when that was dropped on me, it had a devastating impact, and there was really no emotional support, especially from other men, trying to explain, hey, listen, this really crushed me. Now, I'm just going to segue for a moment. I did have a friend who was at a party once. This is some years after all this in my life, who went to a party, and somehow this woman, who apparently was so drunk, her husband was there. He ended up leaving because she was just making a complete jerk of herself, and I guess she didn't come home that night or something. But anyway, long story short, to cover her butt, she ended up blaming my friend of something, not even knowing what. And so there was a knock on the door from the police. And the police said, yeah, we don't know what to make of this, because this woman has just given a dozen different accounts of what allegedly happened, and it turned out that she was lying. But the point is, though, it happened. So it can happen to anyone. Now, going back to 2013, after the May 4th, 2013 event, I was really suffering a lot of post-traumatic stress. I remember, and I shared, even in videos and later in the years, the effects of post-traumatic stress. To segue again for a moment, I've shared times of the post-traumatic stress and even some emotional times, which we're going to get into this video a little bit later on. And society, especially men, might deem that as weakness or whatever. But it takes a lot of strength as a man to show the extremely vulnerable side that, say for example, post-traumatic stress, and even something emotional that brings tears to your eyes. And it's a sign of strength. And anyone who's known me especially for my life, knows that I'm not a wishy-washy kind of feminine type of guy. Apparently the extreme opposite. But I've wanted to show there's another side. There's a human side to the person behind all the efforts that I've done over the years and behind these videos. But anyway, so in 2013, I started to try to reach out to groups, like just anyone, like real life or online or anything. And a long story short, I found there was nothing. There were men groups, but they were no longer active. There were emails and phone numbers, no longer active. Now there's some groups conducted by women saying, yes, we cater to men and women, no discrimination nonsense. But when you actually reach out to them, man, there's nothing they can do. They didn't even want to talk. And I started to really wonder, what's going on here in the world? That, for one thing, that a false accusation, an accusation, is treated like extremely, I wouldn't even say serious, but just way out there, just extreme. And there's no support for men. And that put me on a tangent of researching this particular topic. And then from there, I spent years, many years, researching feminism. And over many years, I've publicly stated that I am not a feminist. If anything, I would be considered anti-feminist. And I sum all that up by saying that feminism is about the beta and omega females wanting equality with the alpha females. And that's why we see conflicts among women with that. But I also include the incel movement, which is the males version, where you have the beta and omega males wanting equality with the alpha males. Anyway, that whole thing would be a social construct, because you're going against the natural hierarchy in any species. You have more dominant and you have less dominant. But this social construct of victimization and everything else, And this also ties into the online arena, where everyone more or less is equal, setting aside content of comments and things like that. People hide behind a keyboard and a screen, say whatever they want, and even get to the point of being extremely rude. So that put me on the tangent of researching feminism being the cause behind that. And there are many women like Karen Strawn, Janice Fiamingo. I would even add Cassie J to that, and there's others many others actually, who speak out against feminism. And the whole feminism myth is based on untruths. Anyway, I digress. So when I was watching this individual talk, that brought me back to that point, and then the years that followed. And my efforts, for example, which started off as trying to expose the sex trafficking of vulnerable women in the city of Calgary, which involved very, very powerful, influential people, and dare even say governing bodies as well. How much they knew, I don't know, but I do know they know, because I did tell them at some point. So what they knew before, I don't know, but I know they didn't know after. But anyway, kind of rambling here. So when it comes to society and men, this individual starting to get a taste of what it's like to be a man, and it is very lonely, as this person says. Now, I've said, meeting women, for example, my whole life I've never had a problem. I just haven't been with a woman or in a relationship since the woman I married, and the last time I seen her was February 1999, and there's videos talking about all that and what happened there. And just gonna say that it had to deal with worldwide sex trafficking. I'll leave it at that. Now, being a man, living as I have been for almost this past decade, a lot of people who've been following my story know how I've been living. It's been hard, and there's pretty much nothing available for men. Women, there's a plethora of social groups, government type of programs, all sorts of things for women. And when you look at the homeless people on the street, literally on the street, sleeping on sidewalks, they're like 98% male, because they slip through the system. There's really nothing in place for them. But women, yes, women have, especially if it's a single mother type of scenario, there's tons of stuff. And what's ironic, and I'm just going to segue for a moment here, is you have feminists wanting or saying that, look how independent they are, but yet they're still relying on others to give them the perception of their independence and everything else. And it's just all nonsense. It's just, everything in this world has gone crazy. And then you can tie that into with all these small groups who are screaming so loud. For example, like this woman who thinks she's a man. These groups, they're all screaming that they want their freedom and independence, but yet they're still relying on others to artificially give it to them. That's a whole different tangent. Now, if I'm offending anyone, I'm not trying to. I'm just simply stating things as they are and things from my perspective. But for men, things can go a lot deeper, and I can only relate my story, my life. I've shared in videos since 2020 some of the things that I've had to deal with growing up since I was a child, as a prepubescent child, a toddler even, being sexually abused, and then from there, when my parents had split up, I stayed with my mother, and the psychological and physical torture that I had to deal with because of whatever it is that's going on in her mind, her mental illnesses, whatever. And then when I moved out, just after I turned 17, after being deliberately poisoned for an insurance trust fund and all this other stuff, my being sex trafficked, and I've talked about this in a lot more detail in other videos. So men, speaking as a man, go through a lot, and society overall just simply ignores it. You won't get the support as a man from other men because deep down inside there's that competitiveness. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way we are all hardwired. But I look back on my life, and now I know there's a lot of people of all ages who blame their parents and say, oh, you had a terrible childhood and all this other nonsense. And most of the time, that's just their perception, or perhaps even their false memories. And the studies made famous by Julia Shaw, implanting false memories, plays a role into all that. Now, as with everything else in my life, I've always, I guess the more modern term now is produced receipts of these things. And there's a difference with someone saying, oh, my parents were terrible just because they were disciplined and stuff. But you also have parents who cause harm deliberately. Again, for whatever reason, but in their own minds, they're justifying it. And they can even set out to try to destroy a child or their children. And unfortunately, that's been the case with me in my life. Now, I'm going to share some video clips from my videos from 2020. And by no means is this, I don't even know how to put it. I'm not trying to paint a picture, good or bad. I'm just simply sharing some sample evidence of things that I had to go through throughout my life with one of my parents. And that all ties into how society deems men as a throwaway. Now, just to do a real quick recap, in December of 2019, I had someone reach out to me that knew me since I was born, and just basically Merry Christmas type of thing. And they said something that caught my attention with regards to the attempt of my being aborted. And I kind of came back, I guess it just seemed like they thought that I knew. And then the reply, after I replied, I was kind of stunned. So I found a way to reach out to my mother, and I wanted to hear from her if this was true. Now, ironically, all my life I've been against the murdering of babies through abortion, but anyway. And that's what began the dialogue. And long story short, I was invited to come and stay, and I was there maybe about a week, and I hadn't seen her at the time. I think it was since 1999, so 2020, 21 years, say. And before that, say in the 90s, I gave her opportunity after opportunity. And then one morning we were talking, and I thought we were reconciling everything, and I'd mentioned that my health at the time even was not that good, and so forth. And then she said she wanted to sue the city of Calgary for what they did to me, and no, like, you don't, why would, you don't have a claim. I was kind of taken back by her idea. And, she tried to say, well, I should. And I said, well, remember, I've practiced law as agent. I know law. You don't have a case. And it was about 8 o'clock that same night. It was March. She had come to the room that I was in, and I just knew by the tone and demeanor something was off. And went to the living room and basically said I had to leave, like, just very cold. I'm just like, here we go again. Nothing has changed, and I was really, really heartbroken. And then she tried to turn around and say, well, I never told you to leave, or, well, I have audio recordings for my entire stay there. And I did that because I didn't trust her. But I was still hoping, as a son, that there was going to be reconciliation and everything else. Anyway, I'm going to share just some of these clips from these videos. Hopefully they make sense, but you can kind of hear and read, because I've shared some of them, some emails and so forth, everything that I'm saying.
The police department. But her destructiveness did not stop in my past. She always called the police on me when I confronted her about things she did to me. This going on my record as domestic issues. I ended up filing multiple requests for the freedom of information with immigration after the woman I married and I were having problems with processing her. I would later learn my mother wrote them letters painting me as a villain. Who would have ever guessed the torture I was facing, and I told her to leave me alone. December 2019, I learned that I survived abortion, as the person who briefly mentioned it in passing assumed I knew. January 2020, I wrote back to her wanting to hear about the abortion from her, at which time I told her of the pain she had caused me throughout my life. However, she denies deliberately poisoning me when I was in my late 16th year. One line in her email clicked. I knew who she means when she says they're out to get you. But the question that remained is why? That one line is her being angry at me, even over the past 10 to 20 years since I cut her out of my life. And this anger appears to continue to this day. No one has ever said anything bad about my mother. Is this about your friends and...
Well, this is criminal law. It's 325.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have no contact with you.
Yeah.
Because we both are going to be in trouble.
So when did all this come up?
In the last couple of days,
I thought people would be a little bit more supportive that we would be, I don't know, reuniting. Why?
you don't know what, because you've been in the business world.
Yeah, but I'm just saying my friends were supportive that we were talking.
There's a couple of people that would help. They can only help you with some money for the gas. Because I don't want to neither be arrested, neither want you to be arrested, neither want a police in the middle of all of this. It's none of their business. And I don't want to send email to you saying, you know, this has to end here and now, blah, 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 blah. Just a couple of them are very ticked off, but not with me, but with you. So
Why are they ticked off with me?
because and keeping me at bay. That's their version, okay? So, I don't think there are any vacancies in them.
I still don't understand why people are pissed off at me for whatever. I mean, it's, if they don't care, then they shouldn't care.
Well,
You know, it's part of reconciliation. I didn't talk to my father for 30 years. And no one made us think about that.
I cannot keep you indefinite here anyway because
I know. I was saying at the,
Yeah.
I need to tell the end of the month, but if you want me to leave sooner, then I'll need help sooner too, and I'll just leave and you won't hear from me again. So your friends will be.
That's a blackmail, okay? That is a total. Blackmail, Tony.
It's not blackmail. I'm saying I need help to leave. So if you want to help me leave, if you don't want to help me leave, then don't. I don't like it doesn't matter. I'll leave.
You come up with $500 for your gas.
Oh,
If you need it for the gas. But those are different friends that I'm talking about. The
What-
other two are, how shall I put it? We don't have very much to do, but they've been there since she died.
I came here because my health is not good,
And I told them that.
and I have prayed for a long time to. I don't want to leave this world alone. That's all. And I'm not trying to cause trouble for anybody.
No.
I'm not trying to blackmail anybody.
I know that.
I'll just go. I'll just grab my stuff now and I'll go.
How are you going to go?
For a long drive as far as I can and wait wherever I end up, and when money comes in.
Like this.
There's more room to organize my packing here, so
Here's a $500.
I don't want money.
No, these are good friends.
I don't want
They
money.
have nothing against you.
I know. I don't want any money. Thank you, though.
Tony, these people are decent and honest people.
No, I don't want money. I don't want money. You can sit down while I pack my shit here. I just threw everything in here. So I can squeeze the air out and it packs in nice, so. No. I don't want it. I don't want anybody's money. Well, at least we had a week and a half to catch up and talk and some emails to we did. We had some good talks. Can you get to bed? No, I just want to walk up. Please. They're hitting my hands.
Please keep the money. It's from the good people. They want you to have it. Please.
We can talk about it later. I just want to go. I love you.
And you know, I look back on my life, the times, for example, in the 90s where I really tried as a son to have that mother and son bond. And it always backfired on me, even in the early 1990s when I was trying to become a police officer, and she wrote a letter and I did all the testing, passed everything, and she wrote a letter in which basically just destroyed any possibility of that. Anytime that I would try to go visit, she'd get upset and call the police. So, you know, as a male, society thinks, oh yeah, well you're guilty of something, you know, your own mother's calling the police, your own mother's saying this about you. No one ever stops to think, well, yeah, maybe the mother has some sort of mental illness, some other problems, some other issues. But I suppose in my personal life, that would have been the first false accuser in my life all the way to my pubescent times. That's a whole different topic that I've talked about in another video. Just trying to survive life as a man, especially in today's, I'm going to use the word toxic world. It's not easy. And it's not easy to dig yourself or get yourself out of the hole that someone else dug for you. And I look back to what the city of Calgary did to me to silence me and everything else and completely destroy my life, personally and professionally, and even physically, from the beating that I sustained. And society doesn't really seem to care. But living as a man, watching that person's emotional video and contrasting, and what's unique about this individual is they live their life as a female, changed to appear to be as a male, and they themselves can now see from two different perspectives what it's like to be a man trying to survive in this world. And they even mention they can understand why the suicide rate is off the charts for men. There's so much, and over the many, many years, almost a decade of researching feminism and how everything is just spun out of control. Just watching that video, just whoa for me inside. And I actually watched it a few more times, just had that much of a profound impact on me, and realizing what I've been through throughout my childhood, throughout my adult years, and what I've been through in Calgary, Alberta, and even to now. So really my point with all this is just an awareness to what men have to go through. And as a man, you don't talk about it openly. You don't share your tears. You don't share the trauma that you're experiencing and everything else. You have to kind of bottle it up. And it's expected that men climb out of any holes that they find themselves in, whether it be self-inflicted holes or holes that are imposed by others. The problem is when you have the deck stacked against you from one source or another, what do? Anyway, that's all I want to say. This video's gone out a lot longer than what I was thinking. Hopefully you made it here to the end. Hopefully you're thinking to yourselves, reflecting. If you're a man, if you're a woman, maybe reconsider your bitterness towards men, if you have any or anything. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.